Everyone in the galaxy feared our plasma squad, 8 elite soldiers who never lost. But one quiet human girl sent them to the medical bay using nothing but a cafeteria tray. Look, I have been working security at the Vartanis Maximum Detention Complex for 17 cycles now, right? 17 cycles. I have seen Krellian berserkers tear through reinforced durasteel with their bare claws. I have watched Zephan psychics make 3 guards simultaneously forget their own names. I have personally restrained a molten core Draxi who was literally on fire, and I still have the scars to prove it. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, prepared me for the day Lieutenant Maya Reeves turned a standard-issue lunch tray into a weapon of mass humiliation. My name is Kix, by the way. Security Officer Second Class Kix of the Thorolian species, and yes, I know what you are thinking. Why is a Thorolian, a species known for our cautious nature and statistical risk assessment, working at the most dangerous prison facility in the Outer Nexus? Well, the pay is exceptional, and my spawn needed new biopods for their educational development. But after what I witnessed in Cafeteria Block 7, I am seriously reconsidering my career choices. Let me set the scene for you, because the official incident report does not even begin to capture the sheer absurdity of what happened. The Vartanis Maximum Detention Complex houses exactly 2,347 inmates from 62 different species. We have Category 5 threats locked behind triple-layered containment fields. We have war criminals who have depopulated entire moons. We have pirates who have stolen things that should not technically be possible to steal, like emotions or the color blue. Our facility is equipped with the latest Confederation military technology, staffed by personnel trained in 17 different forms of combat, and protected by automated defense systems that could level a small city. And yet, a single human female, with access to nothing more than cafeteria equipment, managed to hospitalize our most elite security team. The Plasma Squad. Oh, you have heard of them? Of course you have. Everyone in the Outer Nexus has heard of the Plasma Squad. 8 members of the Confederation's finest, recruited from military special operations across 4 different sectors. These were not your average detention facility guards. Oh no. These were the individuals you called when a situation had gone completely sideways. Prison riot. Plasma Squad. Hostage situation. Plasma Squad. Inmate with reality warping abilities trying to phase through the hull. You guessed it, Plasma Squad. They wore custom armor plating, carried weapons that cost more than my annual salary, and had a combined total of 112 years of combat experience. Their team leader, a Vorvathian named Commander Krese, had personally subdued a rogue Sentinel-class war machine during the Fringe conflicts. Another member, a Quelixian named Rena, held the facility record for fastest takedown of a hostile target, 9 seconds flat, from initial contact to full restraint. These were serious professionals with serious credentials, and they took their reputation very, very seriously. So when Lieutenant Maya Reeves arrived at our facility 3 weeks prior, flagged as a Category 3 human threat requiring specialized transport protocols, guess who got assigned to her eventual transfer? You got it. The Plasma Squad. Command wanted absolutely 0 chances of complications. This human had apparently caused what the official documentation called significant diplomatic incidents on 4 separate colony stations, and the Confederation was very eager to get her processed and relocated to a more permanent facility without any additional paperwork. The funny thing is, she had been a model prisoner up until that point, quiet, polite even. She followed all the protocols, never caused trouble during inspections, and actually said please and thank you to the cafeteria workers, which, let me tell you, is extraordinarily rare. Most inmates treat the service staff like mobile furniture, but not Lieutenant Reeves. She would smile, nod, and engage in pleasant small talk about the meal option. I remember Vix, one of my colleagues from the monitoring station, making a comment about how humans were not nearly as dangerous as the rumors suggested. How the propaganda had obviously exaggerated their threat levels for political reasons, how they were probably just slightly above average in terms of physical capability, and all the stories about their berserker rages and impossible endurance were most likely cultural mythology. I specifically remember this conversation because it happened approximately 4 hours before the incident. 4 hours before the Plasma Squad confidently strutted into Cafeteria Block 7 to collect one very calm human female for her scheduled transport. 4 hours before Lieutenant Maya Reeves taught an entire maximum security facility that lunch trays, when wielded by a human with nothing left to lose, are far more dangerous than plasma rifles. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you exactly how the most elite security team in the Outer Nexus ended up in the medical bay, suffering from injuries that our doctors initially thought were the result of explosive decompression or possibly a localized gravity malfunction. Spoiler alert, it was neither. It was just one human, one lunch tray, and a level of creative violence that our risk assessment algorithms had not even considered possible. Cafeteria Block 7 operates on a precision schedule that would make a chronometer jealous. Every meal period, every single day, follows the exact same protocol. Inmates are released from their cells in groups of 20, escorted by no fewer than 4 armed guards, and given exactly 32 minutes to collect their food, consume it, and return their trays to the sanitization units. The tables are bolted to the floor, the chairs are magnetically locked when not in use. Even the utensils are made from a specialized polymer that dissolves if removed from the cafeteria zone for more than 5 minutes. We do not take chances here, is what I am saying. The food itself is nutritionally optimized for multi-species consumption, which means it tastes like absolutely nothing, and has the consistency of what I imagine sadness would feel like if it were edible. But it keeps everyone alive and meets Confederation minimum standards, so nobody complains. Well, they complain constantly, but nobody files official grievances because what would be the point? On that particular day, second meal period, Lieutenant Reeves was seated at table 14. I was monitoring from Station 6, which gives you a full view of the eastern section of the cafeteria. She had collected her standard meal allotment, which consisted of protein paste, carbohydrate blocks, 2 vitamin supplements, and a cup of what we generously call juice, but is technically classified as flavored hydration fluid. She was eating slowly, methodically, like she had all the time in the world. Fork goes down, picks up a small amount of protein paste, lifts to mouth, chews exactly 7 times, swallows. Sip of juice. Repeat. It was almost meditative watching her. Some of the other inmates were shoving food into their mouths like they were in a competition, but not Reeves. She was the picture of calm. I should have known right then that something was off. In my experience, the calm ones are always the most dangerous. At approximately 14 minutes into the meal period, the cafeteria doors opened with their standard hydraulic hiss, and in walked the plasma squad. All 8 of them fully armored, weapons powered but not drawn. They moved in formation, a practiced coordination that spoke of countless operations together. Commander Crace was in the lead, his Vorvathian frame taking up significantly more space than the average humanoid. Behind him, the rest of the team fanned out in a standard perimeter configuration. The entire cafeteria went quiet. Not silent, mind you, because that would require every inmate to stop eating simultaneously, and that is biologically impossible for some species, but quiet. That heavy kind of quiet, where everyone is suddenly very interested in their food while also tracking every movement in their peripheral vision. Commander Craze approached table 14 with the kind of confidence that comes from never having lost a confrontation. His voice boomed across the cafeteria, that deep Vorfathian rumble that you feel in your chest cavity before you actually hear it. Lieutenant Maya Reeves, Confederation Detention Registry number 749er2 Alpha. Your transfer window has been scheduled. You will come with us now. Reeves looked up from her tray. She had a forkful of protein paste halfway to her mouth. She smiled. Actually smiled. It was not a threatening smile or a sarcastic smile. It was genuinely pleasant. The kind of smile you might give a neighbor who just told you about their new garden. Oh, absolutely, Commander, I will be right with you. Just give me a moment to finish my meal. I would hate to waste food, you know. Resources being precious and all. I saw Crassy exchange a glance with Rena, the Quilixian on his left. There was a moment of confusion. Inmates did not usually ask permission to finish their lunch. They either complied immediately or they resisted, which led to the sedation protocol. This middle ground, this polite request, was not in the standard operational manual. Cray seemed to consider it for approximately 3 seconds. Then he nodded. You have 5 minutes, Lieutenant. Do not make us wait. Appreciate it, Commander. Very kind of you, Reeves said and went back to her meal. Fork down, scoop, lift, chew, 7 times, swallow. Sip of juice. The plasma squad took up positions around table 14. Relaxed positions. Confident positions. The kind of positions that said they had done this 1,000 times before with zero complications. Rena even deactivated her weapon to conserve the power cell. I saw her do it. She actually powered down her rifle and maglocked it to her hip. That was mistake number 1. Mistake number 2 was assuming that a human who said please and thank you was actually docile. And mistake number 3. Well, mistake number 3 was standing within arm's reach of Lieutenant Maya Reeves while she was holding a lunch tray. I watched her finish the last bite of her protein paste. Watched her drain the final sip of her juice. Watched her place the cup down gently on the tray. And look up at Commander Craze with that same pleasant smile. All done, she said brightly. Ready when you are. She stood up, lunch tray in hand, and started walking toward the sanitization units like she was supposed to. And that is when everything went spectacularly, violently, hilariously wrong. So there I was, watching the security feed, thinking about how I needed to file my weekly equipment maintenance reports, and maybe grab some decent sleep after my shift, when Lieutenant Maya Reeves proved that physics is apparently more of a suggestion than a law, when humans get involved. She took exactly 4 steps toward the sanitization units. 4 casual, unhurried steps. The plasma squad began to follow her in standard escort formation. 2 on each side, 4 bringing up the rear. Textbook procedure. Commander Craze was saying something into his comm unit, probably confirming the pickup to Central Command, when Reeves suddenly pivoted on her left foot with a speed that should not have been possible for a species with her muscle density. The lunch tray came around in a wide arc, and I swear to every deity in the Confederation pantheon, it made a sound. Not just the whoosh of air displacement, but an actual high-pitched whistle, like the tray was screaming in protest at being used for something so far outside its designed purpose. The edge of that tray caught Rena directly across the face with enough force that her helmet's heads-up display shattered. The Quilxian went down like someone had just cut her power supply, straight backwards, arms pinwheeling. She hit the floor with a crash that echoed through the entire cafeteria, and her rifle clattered away across the tiles. For exactly 1.7 seconds, according to the timestamp on my security feed, nobody moved. Not the plasma squad, not the other inmates, not me. We all just stood there, trying to process what our eyes had just witnessed. A lunch tray had just taken down one of the most decorated security officers in the facility. Then chaos erupted like someone had just opened an airlock to a nightmare dimension. Commander Craze roared something in Vorvithian that my translator absolutely refused to process, probably because it was mostly profanity, and reached for his sidearm. 2 other squad members, a Drexian named Holth and a human male named Marcus Chen, went for their stun batons. The remaining 4 tried to form a containment circle, which was the correct tactical response except for one tiny problem. They were not dealing with a normal opponent. They were dealing with a human who had apparently decided that today was the day she stopped pretending to be harmless. Reeves moved again, and I still cannot adequately explain how she did it. Her body seemed to fold in ways that should have required at least 2 additional joints. She dropped low, spinning, and that lunch tray came up just as Holth's stun baton came down. The impact sent a shower of sparks across the cafeteria floor, and the baton went flying out of Holth's grip, end over end, before embedding itself in the ceiling tiles. The ceiling tiles. The ones that are 6 meters up. Marcus Chen got his stun baton activated and swung for Reeves's midsection. A solid strike that should have connected. Would have connected if she had not brought the lunch tray down at the exact angle needed to deflect the blow. The baton skidded off the tray's surface with a screech of protesting metal, and Chen stumbled forward from his own momentum. That was when Reeves hit him with the tray. Not an edge strike like she had used on Rena, but a full flat impact, both hands gripping the sides of the tray, driving it forward like a battering ram straight into Chen's chest plate. The armor held, obviously, but the kinetic force transferred through it anyway, and Chen went staggering backward, gasping for air. A Vox named Trill managed to get his plasma rifle up and fired a stun round, which should have ended the entire situation right there. Stun rounds are not something you dodge. They are not something you block. They are wide dispersal energy pulses specifically designed to overwhelm nervous systems, regardless of species. Reeves brought the lunch tray up in front of her face, angled at precisely 45 degrees, and the stun round hit the tray's surface and reflected upward. The energy pulse slammed into the lighting panel directly above us, which exploded in a shower of sparks and plunged half the cafeteria into emergency backup lighting. I checked the recording 3 times later, 3 times, because I could not believe what I was seeing. She had turned a lunch tray into a functioning reflective shield against energy weapons. The tray was not even scorched. There was not a mark on it. Commander Craze abandoned any pretense of non-lethal force and drew his plasma sidearm, the kind that has a very simple setting, stun or vaporize, and right now I am guessing he was not feeling particularly generous about which one to use. But before he could get a targeting lock, Reeves threw the tray. Threw it. Like a discus. Like she was competing in some kind of Olympic event that nobody had ever heard of. The tray spun through the air with that same high-pitched whistle, rotating so fast it became a silver blur, and caught Crace right in the wrist. His weapon discharged into the floor, melting a hole the size of my head into the tiles, and then clattered away. The tray bounced off his wrist, ricocheted off a nearby table support beam, and came spinning back toward Reeves like it was magnetically attracted to her. She caught it. One hand. Did not even look. Just reached out and snagged it from the air mid-flight like this was something she did every day before breakfast. By this point, I had activated the facility-wide alert system, but I could not stop watching the security feed. It was like witnessing a natural disaster. You know you should probably take cover or evacuate, but you are too mesmerized by the sheer scope of the destruction to look away. 4 members of the plasma squad were still standing, 4 highly trained, heavily armed security officers against 1 human with a lunch tray. And somehow, I knew the tray was going to win. The remaining 4 plasma squad members had apparently decided that coordinated tactics were their best option, which was adorable, really, considering coordinated tactics require your opponent to follow predictable patterns of movement. Lieutenant Reeves was about as predictable as a quantum fluctuation in a dark matter field. A Keltorian named Zash came at her from the left, while a Fraxian called Domerit approached from the right. Classic pincer maneuver. Meanwhile, Holt had recovered his composure, if not his dignity, and was circling around to flank from behind. The 4th, a Urian named Seth, hung back with his rifle raised, waiting for a clear shot that would not risk hitting his teammates. Reeves did not even hesitate. She grabbed her empty juice cup from the table, the one she had been drinking from maybe 90 seconds earlier, and hurled it at Seth's face. Now, a juice cup weighs approximately 40 grams. It is made of biodegradable compressed fiber. It should not be threatening to anyone wearing tactical armor and a helmet visor. But Reeves threw it hard enough that it actually cracked Seth's visor on impact. The Urian flinched, instinctively bringing his rifle up to protect his face, which meant his shot went wide and burned a smoking line across the ceiling. In the half-second that bought her, Reeves slammed the lunch tray down onto table 14 with enough force that one of the bolts holding the table to the floor actually sheared off. The entire table tilted sideways at a 10-degree angle, then she vaulted onto it, using the tilted surface as a ramp and launched herself into the air. I am not exaggerating when I say she got at least 2 meters of height. 2 meters, from a standing jump, onto a broken table. While holding a lunch tray, she came down on Zash like a meteor, with a personal vendetta, driving both knees into his shoulders. The Keltorian's armor held, but the impact drove him face-first into the floor with a crunch that I felt through the monitoring station's audio feed. Reeves rolled off him, still somehow maintaining her grip on that tray, and came up right in front of Damir. The Fraxian swung a haymaker punch that would have shattered a concrete wall, but Reeves ducked under it, brought the tray up in an uppercut motion, and caught Damir right under the chin. His head snapped back, his eyes went unfocused, and he toppled over backward like a felled tree. From across the cafeteria I heard an inmate, a Grelian smuggler named Voxus, start laughing. Actually laughing. She is using the food tray. The food tray. How much do we pay for security again? Another inmate, whose name I never learned but who had 6 arms and an attitude problem, shouted, I have credits on the human. Anyone want to bet against her? Nobody took that bet. Several inmates were now openly recording the fight on contraband devices that they absolutely should not have had, and I made a mental note to conduct a full sweep later if I survived the inevitable administrative inquiry that was definitely coming after this disaster. Holt finally reached Reeves from behind and wrapped his massive Drexian arms around her in a bear hug that should have ended the fight immediately. Drexians are strong, absurdly strong. Their home world has 3 times standard gravity, and they are built accordingly. Holt could bench press a small shuttle. He lifted Reeves clear off the ground, squeezing tight, and I actually thought that was it. Fight over. Human contained. Then Reeves swung the lunch tray backward over her own head and brought the edge down on Holt's foot. The armored foot that was supposedly rated to withstand a Class 3 explosive blast. Holt screamed. He actually screamed, and dropped Reeves immediately, hopping backward on one leg while clutching his injured foot. Later, medical would report that she had somehow managed to find the exact point where 3 armor plates met, the microscopic gap in coverage, and had driven the tray's edge through it with enough precision to fracture 2 of his toe-equivalent bones. Precision, with a lunch tray, while being held in a combat grip, upside down. I pulled up the slow-motion replay later and watched it frame by frame. The angle she used, the force distribution, the exact point of impact. It was not luck. It was calculated. She had identified the weak point in his armor in the split second before striking, adjusted her swing trajectory mid-motion, and executed a perfect disabling blow. The security analysis AI flagged the movement as impossible based on human reaction time parameters. I filed a report suggesting we update those parameters significantly. Seth had finally cleared his visor and was lining up another shot when Reeves grabbed a protein paste container from a nearby table, still sealed, still full. She threw it with a sidearm motion, and it hit Seth's rifle right at the power cell junction. The container exploded on impact, spraying beige nutritional goop all over his weapon's energy port, and the rifle immediately began sparking and smoking. Seth stared at his malfunctioning weapon in disbelief, then at Reeves, then back at his weapon. He made the wise decision to retreat, backing away slowly, while trying to clear the paste from his rifle's mechanisms. From my monitoring station, I watched Commander Cracy pull himself back to his feet, cradling his wrist. Marcus Chen had recovered enough to breathe normally and was reaching for his backup weapon. Trill was attempting to recalibrate his plasma rifle for a second shot. 3 still combat capable. Well, maybe 2.5 if we were being generous about Cracy's wrist injury. Reeves stood in the center of the cafeteria, surrounded by groaning plasma squad members, holding that lunch tray like it was Excalibur itself. Her uniform was not even wrinkled. She was not breathing hard. There was not a single mark on her. An elderly Throsian inmate, who had been imprisoned for the last 40 years for crimes I did not have clearance to know about, set down his fork and spoke in a raspy voice that carried across the entire room. I fought in the Krellian Wars. I have seen orbital bombardments and chemical weapons. I have watched entire battalions get vaporized. But this is the most beautiful violence I have ever witnessed. Several other inmates actually applauded. Chen drew his backup pistol, a small plasma Derringer, and aimed it at Reeves with shaking hands. Drop the tray. Drop it now or I will fire. Reeves tilted her head, considering him with an expression of polite interest. Officer Chen, that is a Mark IV Derringer. Correct? Effective range of about 8 meters, rate of fire limited by the microcell recharge cycle. You are currently standing at approximately 11 meters from me. Chen's hands steadied. I am a qualified marksman. I do not miss. Oh, I believe you, Reeves said pleasantly. But you are also standing directly in line with the sanitation unit's chemical storage tank. The one clearly marked with hazard warnings. If you miss, or if your shot goes through me, you will rupture that tank and flood this cafeteria with industrial-grade cleaning solution, which is corrosive to, let me think, about 90% of species currently present in this room. I checked the sightline. She was right. She was absolutely right. How did she even know where the storage tanks were located? That information was not on any inmate-accessible database. Chen lowered his weapon very, very slowly. Commander Crace spoke up, his voice strained but still commanding. Lieutenant Reeves, you have assaulted Confederation security personnel. You are adding decades to your sentence. Surrender now, and I will ensure you receive medical evaluation instead of summary punishment. Reeves smiled that same pleasant smile from before. Commander, I was finishing my lunch like you told me to. Not my fault your team decided to stand in the splash zone. Then she walked over to the sanitization unit and placed her lunch tray in the proper receptacle exactly as protocol required. She turned back to the assembled plasma squad, most of whom were still on the floor, and raised her hands in surrender. All done now. Ready for transport whenever you are. The medical bay report made for absolutely fascinating reading. If your definition of fascinating includes phrases like unprecedented blunt force trauma and injuries inconsistent with available weaponry. Rena had a concussion, fractured cheekbone, and what the doctor described as cognitive dissonance regarding the structural integrity of cafeteria equipment. She kept asking how a tray could hit that hard, over and over until they sedated her. Holt required surgery on his foot. 2 fractured toe bones, remember? The medical AI initially diagnosed it as crush damage from an industrial press. When told it was actually a lunch tray, the AI requested a full diagnostic reset because it assumed it was malfunctioning. Marcus Chen had 3 cracked ribs despite his armor absorbing most of the impact. He spent 6 hours in the regeneration pod and another 3 in psychological evaluation. Apparently, he kept insisting that the tray had moved faster than his eyes could track, which the psych team attributed to shock. Dahmer needed dental reconstruction. Zash had a spinal compression injury. Trill's hands were still shaking 48 hours later. Seth filed a report claiming his weapon had been sabotaged, then withdrew it when ballistics confirmed that protein paste does not count as sabotage, just really effective improvisation. And Commander Cracy, broken wrist, bruised ego, and a formal reprimand for catastrophic tactical assessment failure. He tried to argue that no reasonable security protocol could have predicted a lunch tray being weaponized to that degree. Command responded by showing him security footage from 3 other facilities where humans had improvised weapons from similarly mundane objects, including but not limited to a mop handle, a towel, and in one memorable case, a decorative plant. The new protocols were implemented within 72 hours. Protocol Update 774 Alpha. Human Interaction Guidelines. All humans classified as Category 3 or higher are now considered armed at all times regardless of actual weapon possession. Cafeteria privileges are granted only with reinforced polymer trays that dissolve after 15 minutes. No rigid utensils, no glass or ceramic containers. Meals are served in edible bowls made from compressed nutrients. Also, and I am not making this up, there is now a mandatory training course called Environmental Weapon Recognition and Human Capability Assessment. Every security officer in the facility has to complete it. 12 hours of instruction on how literally anything can become a weapon in human hands. The course includes a 2-hour segment just on trays. Different types, different materials, different potential strike patterns. I attended the first session. The instructor, a grizzled Vortian who had worked prison security for 30 years, opened with this statement. Humans are not stronger than most species. They are not faster. They are not more durable, but they have spent their entire evolutionary history turning things that are not weapons into weapons, and they are terrifyingly good at it. He was not wrong. The legend of Lieutenant Reeves spread through Vortanis Maximum Detention Complex like a virus through an unshielded data network. Within a week, every inmate knew the story. Within 2 weeks, it had reached other facilities. By the end of the month, I heard a transport pilot from 3 sectors away casually mention that human who hospitalized the plasma squad with a lunch tray like it was common knowledge. Reeves herself got transferred to a specialized containment facility designed specifically for high-risk human prisoners. Triple redundancy on everything, no hard surfaces, meals delivered via pneumatic tube. I heard she arrived without incident, cooperated fully with intake procedures, and has been a model prisoner ever since. Which frankly terrifies me more than the cafeteria incident. Because if she can be that calm, that pleasant, that cooperative while also being capable of what I witnessed, it means she chooses when to be dangerous. It means every moment of peace is a deliberate decision on her part. That is what I have learned about humans in my 17 cycles of security work. They are not mindless berserkers. They are not uncontrollable forces of nature. They are calculating, adaptable, and patient. They will smile and say please and thank you, right up until the moment they decide it is time to remind you exactly how they climbed to the top of their planet's food chain. I still work at Vortanis. The pay is still good, and my spawns still need their educational support. But I watch the human inmates differently now, more carefully, with the kind of respect you give to a dormant volcano or an unexploded munition. And I never ever stand within arm's reach of one during mealtime. You know what the truly hilarious part is? After everything, after the injuries and the protocol updates in the facility-wide panic, I went back and reviewed the footage one more time. The very end, right after Reeves placed her tray in the sanitization unit and surrendered. You can see it clearly if you enhance the image and adjust for the emergency lighting. She was smiling. Not a threatening smile. Not a victorious smile. Just that same pleasant, polite expression she had worn when Commander Crace first approached her table. The smile of someone who had just finished a satisfying meal and was ready to move on with her day. 17 cycles in security, and that smile is what haunts me, because it says everything you need to know about humans in one simple expression. They do not need to prove they are dangerous. They already know, and they will patiently wait for you to figure it out on your own, usually right around the moment when you realize you should have brought more backup and a lot less confidence. Lieutenant Maya Reeves taught the Plasma Squad that lesson with a lunch tray. I learned it from watching. And now you have heard the story too. Handle your human interactions accordingly.